The revelation. The vast observation deck of Lunar Station Alpha offered a sweeping view of Earth, a fragile blue marble suspended in the darkness of space. Commander Eliza Chen stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her posture military straight, despite having left active combat service years ago. The weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders was heavier than any gravity well. 300 years of space exploration, she murmured to herself, and we're still treated like children at the adults' table. The galaxy, as humanity had discovered upon venturing beyond their solar system, was already teeming with advanced civilizations. Most were indifferent to Earth's presence. Some were cautiously diplomatic, and a few, like the Korvax Dominion, viewed humans as little more than an annoyance, primitive creatures who had stumbled onto the galactic stage before they were truly ready. "Commander," a voice called from behind her. "The final systems check is complete." Lieutenant Commander Jackson Wells approached, his tablet displaying a complex array of diagnostic readings that glowed with a soft blue light in the dimmed observation deck. His dark eyes reflected both excitement and apprehension, the appropriate response for what they were about to do. "Status?" Chen asked, not turning from the view. "Green across all systems. The quantum fold drive is stable, shield harmonics are synchronizing perfectly, and the adaptive hull matrix is responding faster than projected." "She's ready, Commander." Chen nodded slowly. After decades of being dismissed, underestimated, and occasionally threatened, humanity was about to change its standing in the galactic community. Not through diplomacy. They tried that. Not through economic leverage. Earth had little to offer that the older species couldn't produce better and faster. No, they would change their standing through the one universal language that every species understood: power. And the Korvax delegation. Wells checked his tablet again. Their diplomatic cruiser entered lunar orbit 20 minutes ago. Admiral Genkar has sent the formal request for inspection, just as we anticipated. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Korvax were nothing if not predictable in their arrogance. 3 times in the past decade, they had conducted routine inspections of Earth's defensive capabilities, thinly veiled intelligence-gathering operations meant to ensure humans remained harmlessly outmatched. Then let's not keep them waiting. Alert the crew. Initiation sequence in 30 minutes. The corridors of Lunar Station Alpha hummed with controlled energy as Chen made her way to the command center. Engineers, scientists, and military personnel moved with purpose, each aware that today marked a turning point in human history. The project had consumed resources equivalent to the GDP of entire nations, all kept hidden from the prying sensors of alien observers. The command center itself was a marvel of human ingenuity, a circular chamber ringed with holographic displays showing every aspect of the operation. Chief Engineer Sophia Rice approached as Chen entered, her normally calm face alight with barely contained excitement. "Commander, we've just received confirmation. The quantum shroud is holding perfectly," Rice reported. "The Korvax scanners haven't detected anything unusual." "They're about to," Chen replied. Admiral Kral Genkar of the Korvax Dominion stood on the bridge of his cruiser, the inevitable superiority, his 4 eyes narrowed in contempt as he surveyed the primitive human installation. His scaled skin, a mottled pattern of blues and grays, rippled slightly with impatience. "Their technology is unchanged since our last inspection," his science officer reported. "Rudimentary fusion reactors, inefficient propulsion systems, and defensive capabilities that wouldn't withstand a single volley from our tertiary weapons array." "As expected," Genkar replied, mandibles clicking in what passed for amusement among his kind. "These humans never cease to disappoint. Their stubborn insistence on independence is almost admirable, if utterly misguided." A communication request flashed on the main view screen. With a dismissive gesture, Genkar accepted the call. Commander Chen's face appeared, composed and professional. "Admiral Genkar," she greeted him with a respectful nod. "The United Earth Government welcomes you to our system once again." "Commander," he replied, not bothering to hide his disinterest. We will proceed with our standard inspection protocols as agreed upon in the Galactic Accord of 2189. Please prepare your systems for comprehensive scanning. Chen's expression never wavered. Actually, Admiral, we were hoping you might indulge us in a small deviation from the standard protocol. The United Earth government would like to formally present our newest defensive vessel for your inspection. Genkar's secondary eyelids flickered in surprise. A new vessel. Our intelligence indicated no such development. Yes, Chen replied simply. That was by design. Before the Admiral could respond, Lieutenant Commander Wells approached Chen with a tablet. She pressed her palm to its surface, and across the vast emptiness of space, something extraordinary began to happen. The seemingly empty region of space near the lunar dark side rippled like disturbed water. Light bent, twisted, and then parted like a curtain being drawn back. And there, where nothing had appeared to exist moments before, floated a ship of impossible proportions and design. The UES Phoenix emerged from its quantum shroud like a predator revealing itself after perfect stillness. Over 2 kilometers in length, its hull gleamed with a material that seemed to drink in starlight rather than reflect it. Unlike the utilitarian or ceremonially ornate designs favored by most galactic powers, the Phoenix embodied lethal elegance, sleek lines that suggested speed despite its massive size, with no visible weapons ports or engine exhausts marring its perfect contours. On the Korvax vessel, alarms began to sound as sensors suddenly detected what should have been impossible to hide. What is this deception? Genkar demanded, his composure fractured for the first time in Chen's experience with him. Not deception, Admiral. Simply a revelation. The UES Phoenix is humanity's first true galactic defense vessel. We would be honored to provide you with a demonstration of her capabilities. Chief Engineer Rice stepped forward, taking over the briefing with professional pride evident in her voice. The Phoenix represents several technological breakthroughs unique to human engineering. Her hull consists of a self-repairing carbon neutronium lattice that can adapt its molecular structure in response to different types of energy weapons. The propulsion system utilizes what we call a quantum fold drive, allowing instantaneous repositioning within limited spatial parameters without traditional acceleration. With each word, the Korvax Admiral's posture grew more rigid, his eyes widening as the implications became clear. This was not merely a new ship, it was technology that rivaled or exceeded much of what the Dominion possessed. Most significantly, Rides continued, the Phoenix employs a distributed consciousness artificial intelligence, unlike anything in current galactic use. Rather than a centralized computer core vulnerable to attack, the ship's intelligence exists simultaneously throughout its entire structure. There is no command center to target, no critical system that, if disabled, would render her inoperative. Chen watched Genkar's reaction carefully. The Korvax Dominion had maintained their position of power through technological superiority for centuries. They weren't accustomed to surprise, especially not from species they had categorized as pre-emergent. You've been hiding this development, Genkar finally said, the accusation clear in his tone. Just as you've hidden the deployment of gravity disruptors in the TAS-CD system. Chen countered smoothly. Every species has its secrets, Admiral. Tension filled the communication channel. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the Korvax's secondary command station erupted with urgent alerts. 3 more Korvax warships had emerged from fold space, their weapons systems powering up as they took position around the inevitable superiority. Perhaps, Genkar said, his voice now dangerously calm, we should conduct a more thorough inspection of this vessel, to ensure it complies with all provisions of the Galactic Accord. Chen's expression remained unchanged, but those who knew her well would have recognized the slight tightening around her eyes. The only indication that the situation was proceeding exactly as Earth's strategic planners had predicted. We welcome your inspection, Admiral, she replied. Though I should mention that the Phoenix is merely the first of her class. The Thunderbird and Valkyrie are currently being unveiled to the Altyong Confederation and the Rigelian Compact, respectively. This was humanity's gambit, not just a technological leap, but a careful diplomatic and strategic repositioning. For too long, Earth had been bullied and marginalized. The Phoenix wasn't just a ship, it was a statement that humanity would no longer accept second-class status in the galactic community. The Korvax admiral's face darkened with barely contained rage. "You risk much, Commander. The Dominion does not respond well to threats." "No threat has been made," Chen replied with perfect composure. "Merely an invitation to recognize Earth as an equal partner in maintaining galactic stability." As if to underscore her words, the Phoenix began to move. Despite its enormous size, it glided with impossible grace, positioning itself between the lunar station and the Korvax vessels. "The old balance of power has shifted, Admiral," Chen said quietly. "We invite the Korvax Dominion to join us in establishing a new equilibrium, one based on mutual respect rather than intimidation." Zhenkar's four eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of intense calculation among his species. Finally, he inclined his head slightly. "We will withdraw to analyze this development. The Dominion will determine an appropriate response. We look forward to continuing our dialogue," Chen replied diplomatically. "Safe journeys, Admiral." The communication ended, but the tension remained. On the command deck of Lunar Station Alpha, the assembled officers and engineers maintained their professional composure until the Korvax vessels retreated into fold space. Only then did a wave of quiet celebration break out. Lieutenant Commander Wells approached Chen, his expression a mix of relief and concern. "They'll be back, and not alone." "Of course they will," Chen agreed. "But next time, they'll approach as equals seeking negotiation, not superiors conducting an inspection." She turned to face the magnificent silhouette of the Phoenix floating against the backdrop of Earth. "Everything has changed today. The question now is whether they'll accept that change peacefully or force us to demonstrate exactly what the Phoenix can do." As if sensing her thoughts, the massive ship's hull seemed to ripple slightly, adaptive systems testing, and reconfiguring in preparation for whatever might come next. Humanity had just announced its presence on the galactic stage in a way that could not be ignored. And the galaxy would never be the same. Trial by fire. The waiting was always the hardest part. 72 hours had passed since the Korvax delegation had retreated. 72 hours of heightened alert status, diplomatic channels buzzing with activity, and the rest of the galactic community adjusting to humanity's sudden technological leap. Commander Eliza Chen stood in the heart of the Phoenix, a chamber unlike any traditional bridge or command center. Rather than rows of consoles and a central command chair, the neural nexus was a spherical room where holographic interfaces materialized wherever needed. The ship's distributed AI, nicknamed Athena by the crew, manifested as subtle patterns of light that shifted and flowed across the curved walls. "Status report," Chen requested, her voice calm despite the weight of uncertainty. Lieutenant Commander Wells gestured, and a three-dimensional galactic map appeared between them. Red markers indicated significant movement of Korvax vessels. "They're mobilizing, Commander. 3 battle groups have converged at the edge of the Proxima system. The diplomatic channels have gone silent in the last 6 hours." Chen studied the map, noting the strategic positioning of the alien fleet. "They're coming in force, not just to inspect, but to challenge." Chief Engineer Rise entered the Nexus, her normally immaculate uniform showing signs of hasty dressing. "Final calibrations on the adaptive shield matrix are complete. We've increased synchronization by another 12%. Will it be enough?" Chen asked bluntly. Rice hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "Simulations suggest yes, but there's no substitute for field testing. And the Korvax have technologies we've only observed from a distance." The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. The Phoenix represented humanity's greatest achievement. Years of secret development, resources diverted from public projects, risks taken that would have been political suicide if discovered prematurely. But until it faced real combat, its capabilities remained theoretical. Athena. Chen addressed the ship's AI. Tactical assessment of probable Korvax strategies. The flowing patterns of light coalesced subtly, forming a more concentrated presence in the room. When Athena spoke, her voice emerged from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Calm, precise, yet distinctly female. Based on historical Korvax military doctrine and current formation analysis, there is an 87.3% probability they will attempt to force us into a defensive posture protecting Earth, then deploy their graviton destabilizers to prevent quantum fold maneuvers while systematically targeting what they perceive as critical systems. The AI projected a simulation of this strategy, showing Korvax warships surrounding the Phoenix in a three-dimensional containment pattern. And our counter? Chen asked. Recommended approach is to engage proactively before they can establish the containment field. The Phoenix's adaptive hull can absorb initial strikes while we demonstrate our offensive capabilities against a non-critical target. Wells frowned. You want us to fire first. That gives them propaganda value. Not necessarily, Chen mused, studying the tactical projections. Athena, can we provoke them into revealing their weapon systems without endangering the ship? Affirmative, Commander. A targeted electromagnetic pulse precisely calibrated to their sensor arrays would be interpreted as an attack attempt without causing actual damage. Korvax protocol would demand immediate response. Chen nodded slowly. That gives us the moral high ground while still allowing us to demonstrate the Phoenix's capabilities. Make preparations. The alert klaxon interrupted further discussion. Fold space ruptures detected, announced the tactical officer's voice over the ship-wide communication system. Multiple Korvax signatures emerging. Count at 18 vessels and climbing. Chen's expression hardened. So much for diplomatic solutions. Battle stations. Throughout the massive ship, crew members moved with practiced efficiency to their assigned positions. Unlike conventional vessels where each station controlled specific systems, the Phoenix's distributed architecture meant crew members served more as intention directors than button pushers, working in concert with Athena to execute complex maneuvers and attacks. The neural nexus transformed around Chen, tactical displays materializing to show the rapidly unfolding situation. The Korvax fleet had arrived in overwhelming force. 26 warships, including 3 dreadnoughts of the feared Inevitable class. They emerged in a perfect hemisphere formation, clearly intending to drive the Phoenix back toward Earth where its maneuverability would be limited. They're not taking any chances, Wells observed grimly. A communication request flashed on the main display. Chen nodded, and Admiral Chenkar's face appeared, his 4 eyes cold with purpose. Commander Chen, he began without preamble, the Korvax Dominion has determined that your vessel violates 6 major provisions of the Galactic Accord of 2189, specifically those regarding prohibited weapons technologies and AI development restrictions. You will power down all systems and prepare to be boarded for inspection and probable decommissioning. Chen met his gaze unflinchingly. Admiral, the Phoenix violates no provisions that your own Inevitable class dreadnoughts don't already breach. We are exercising our sovereign right to self-defense as guaranteed under Article 7 of the same accord. You have 1 planetary rotation to comply, Genkar continued as if she hadn't spoken. After which we will take appropriate action to neutralize this threat to galactic stability. The communication cut off abruptly. Chen allowed herself a moment of cold anger before turning to her officers. They're not here to negotiate. They're here to eliminate what they see as a challenge to their dominance. Her voice was level despite the gravity of the situation. We knew this might happen. It's time to show them exactly what humanity is capable of. Wells looked concerned. Commander, even with the Phoenix's capabilities, we're outnumbered 26-1. Numbers aren't everything, Lieutenant Commander, Chen replied. She turned to address the AI. Athena, initialize strategic pattern Delta. Let's introduce ourselves properly. The massive ship hummed with power as energy redirected through its systems. Outside, observers would have seen the Phoenix's hull begin to shimmer. The material seemed to flow like liquid metal while maintaining its structural integrity. Hull reconfiguration complete, Athena announced. Offensive capabilities online but masked. Quantum fold drive spooling. Take us into position, Chen ordered. Standard approach vector, making no effort to conceal our movements. The Phoenix glided forward with deliberate slowness, presenting itself to the Korvax fleet in what would appear to be a conventional confrontation. Chen knew the alien tacticians would be analyzing every movement, searching for weaknesses, preparing to spring their trap. That was exactly what she wanted. As the human vessel approached the center of the Korvax formation, the alien ships began to adjust their positions, creating a three-dimensional net that would prevent easy escape. Multiple targeting systems locked onto the Phoenix, energy readings from the Korvax vessels indicating weapons charging. They're preparing to fire, Wells reported unnecessarily. Everyone could see the tactical displays. Wait for it, Chen said quietly. Let them commit. The tension in the neural nexus was palpable as the Korvax vessels tightened their formation. Then, without warning, brilliant beams of coherent energy erupted from a dozen alien ships simultaneously, converging on the Phoenix from multiple angles. Chen didn't flinch. Now, Athena. Execute. In the instant before the energy weapons would have struck, two extraordinary things happened. The tension in the neural nexus was palpable as the Korvax vessels tightened their formation. Then, without warning, brilliant beams of coherent energy erupted from a dozen alien ships simultaneously, converging on the Phoenix from multiple angles. Chen didn't flinch. Now, Athena. Execute. In the instant before the energy weapons would have struck, two extraordinary things happened. First, sections of the Phoenix's hull reconfigured at the molecular level, creating perfect absorption matrices precisely where the beams would hit. As the devastating energies struck, instead of causing damage, they were captured, channeled, and redirected into the ship's own power systems. Second, the massive human vessel seemed to blink out of existence for a fraction of a second before reappearing instantaneously behind the largest Korvax dreadnought, a maneuver that should have been impossible given the energy requirements of moving such mass. Before the alien fleet could react to this impossible repositioning, the Phoenix revealed its own offensive capabilities, not in the form of conventional energy weapons or projectiles, but something far more sophisticated. Targeted quantum disruption fields blossomed from recessed emitters, engulfing the nearest Korvax vessels. These fields didn't damage the ships directly. They temporarily altered the fundamental properties of matter within their radius. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Shield systems failed as their energy couldn't maintain coherence. Weapon ports sealed shut as the metal around them temporarily shared the same quantum state. Propulsion systems sputtered and died as fuel and oxidizer became briefly indistinguishable. Target their flagship's communication array only, Chen ordered. Minimal damage, maximum demonstration. A precision pulse lashed out, surgically disabling the dreadnought's primary communication systems without collateral damage. The message was clear. The Phoenix could have destroyed the vessel but chose restraint. The Korvax fleet's coordinated attack dissolved into chaos. Some vessels attempted to reorient to target the Phoenix in its new position, while others began emergency maneuvers to escape the quantum disruption fields. Their legendary discipline fractured in the face of technology they couldn't comprehend. They're regrouping, Wells reported, unable to keep the note of amazement from his voice. 3 vessels attempting to flank our position. Let them, Chen replied calmly. Athena, execute quantum fold to coordinates Alpha 3. Again, the massive ship vanished and reappeared instantaneously, this time directly in the center of the Korvax formation. Before the alien vessels could respond, the Phoenix released a spherical wave of electromagnetic energy, precisely calibrated to temporarily disable targeting systems without causing permanent damage. In the neural nexus, Chief Engineer Rice monitored power distribution with growing confidence. The energy absorption matrix is working better than projected. We've captured enough power from their initial assault to fuel 3 more quantum jumps. Commander, Wells interjected urgently. We're receiving broad-spectrum transmissions, not just from the Korvax fleet, but from observing vessels from 6 other species. This confrontation has an audience. Chen nodded grimly. This, too, had been anticipated. The demonstration wasn't just for the Korvax. It was for the entire galactic community. A clear message that humanity could no longer be dismissed or bullied. The largest Korvax dreadnought was turning ponderously, bringing its main cannons to bear despite the disruption to its systems. Shen recognized the desperation in the move. The Korvax admiral was willing to risk everything to maintain his species' reputation for superiority. Incoming fire, Athena announced calmly. Graviton destabilizer at 97% charge. The Graviton destabilizer was the Korvax's most fearsome weapon, capable of creating localized gravity wells that could tear conventional ships apart. It was a weapon they rarely needed to use, as most opponents surrendered at its mere activation. Full adaptive response, Chen ordered. Show them what we can do. As the devastating weapon discharged, the space between the vessels seemed to warp and distort. The Phoenix's hull rippled in response, its entire structure temporarily reconfiguring to disperse and channel the immense gravitational forces. For a moment, the ship appeared to stretch and distort like an image in a funhouse mirror, then snapped back to its original form, completely intact. The silence in the neural nexus was profound. What they had just survived should have been impossible. Rise broke the silence, her voice hushed with awe at her own creation. The adaptive hull matrix performed at 112% of projected capacity. We just survived their heaviest weapon with minimal strain. Chen allowed herself a small smile before returning to her professional demeanor. Athena, open a channel to the Korvax flagship. Admiral Genkar's face appeared on the display, his alien features rigid with what Chen recognized as shock and fury. This demonstration is concluded, Admiral, she stated simply. The United Earth government remains open to diplomatic discussions regarding our place in the galactic community. We would prefer peaceful coexistence and mutual respect, but as you've seen, we are now capable of defending our interests if necessary. The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of intense calculation. When he spoke, his voice carried a new undertone that Chen had never heard from a Korvax before, respect tinged with fear. The Dominion will reassess its position regarding Earth, he said carefully. A diplomatic envoy with full negotiation authority will be dispatched. Chen nodded, keeping her expression neutral despite the surge of triumph she felt. We look forward to productive discussions. Until then, the Phoenix will escort your fleet to the system boundary. As the communication ended, the tension in the neural nexus finally broke. Officers exchanged relieved glances, and a few muted congratulations were shared. Wells approached Chen, shaking his head in amazement. They're actually retreating, he said, watching the tactical display as the Korvax vessels began a careful withdrawal. All of them. Not retreating, Chen corrected him. Repositioning. Politically and strategically. The balance of power has shifted, and they're intelligent enough to recognize it. Reyes joined them, her eyes bright with the validation of years of work. The other observing species have already begun sending communication requests. The Altionians, the Rigelians, even the Terulian collective who've always refused to acknowledge us. Chen nodded, taking in the magnitude of what they had accomplished. In a single confrontation, humanity had rewritten its place in the galactic hierarchy. No longer would Earth be dismissed as an insignificant backwater planet populated by technological primitives. Humanity has arrived, she said quietly, and the galaxy will never be the same. As the Phoenix maintained its vigilant position, monitoring the departing Korvax fleet, smaller craft began to approach from various directions. Diplomatic vessels from a dozen species, all suddenly eager to establish relations with this newly emerged power. Chen gazed at the tactical display showing Earth floating serenely against the backdrop of stars. For centuries, humanity had looked up at the night sky with a mixture of wonder and insecurity, knowing they were late arrivals to a galaxy already claimed by ancient civilizations. Today marked the end of that era of uncertainty. Athena, she addressed the ship's eye. Begin diplomatic protocols. It seems we have a lot of new friends to meet. As the Phoenix prepared to welcome the first representatives of what would undoubtedly be a new era in human history, Shen allowed herself to truly believe what until now had been only a hope. Humanity's place among the stars was finally secure, not through subjugation or intimidation, but through innovation, determination, and the uniquely human refusal to accept the limitations others try to impose upon them. The stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter as the Phoenix stood guard over its home world, a sentinel of humanity's newfound strength and an embodiment of its boundless potential.